All right, what's up, Action Tribe? This is AJ here, and this is our live stream for today. We're going to get started in a minute. But if you're joining us live, or even if you're watching a replay, then make sure that you give us a thumbs up, give us a like, make sure that you add a comment below, whether it's a question, an observation, or something that you'd like to share. Today, we're streaming on Facebook as well as on YouTube so that we can have both our audiences engage, interact, and watch this live stream. But again, depending on which platform you're watching, make sure that you share as well as subscribe to this stream so that we can have more people interact and view this particular podcast episode. All right, so we're going to get started in a few seconds from now. But really excited to have you here. So, 3, 2, 1. What's up, Action Tribe? AJ here, host and founder of My Seven Chakras, my7chakras.com, where we help you experience more healing, more awakening, and more abundance. In today's episode, we're going to. My bad. We have a tech issue right now. Just give me a minute and we will restart. Sorry about that. Just a minute. I had the wrong document. So sorry about that, audience. Okay, I have the right one up.
The joys of going live.
Okay, exactly, the joys of going live. Okay, so I'm just making sure we have the right thing on up. Yes, we do. All right. What's up, Action Tribe? AJ here, host and founder of My Seven Chakras, my7chakras.com, where we help you experience more healing, more awakening, and more abundance. Now, in today's episode, we're going to talk about a really, really exciting topic called having tough conversations with our repeat guest, David Wood, who I'm going to introduce to you in a bit. But before that, let's listen to our latest iTunes review by a listener named Kate from New Jersey, who says, "Thank you, AJ. I just recently discovered your podcast and can only say, keep going. The topics, guests, and information are so interesting. Also, your kind words bring joy to my heart with loads of gratitude." Kate from New Jersey. So, Action Tribe, if you'd like to write your own review as well and get a shout out from me, then make sure that you visit this link, my7chakras.com/review. That's my7chakras.com/review. All right. So, our guest for today, who is appearing on our show for the second time, like I mentioned, is a former consulting actuary to Fortune 100 companies, including Sony Music, Chanel, and Exxon. David left his Cushy Park Avenue job 20 years ago to build the world's largest coaching business. He became number one on Google for life coaching, serving an audience of over 150,000 coaches and coaching thousands of hours across 12 countries. Alongside his clients' successes, David is no stranger to overcoming challenges himself, having overcome a full collapse of his paraglider and a fractured spine, witnessing the death of his sister at age 7, severe anxiety and depression, and a national Gong Show. David believes that tough conversations we avoid are doorways to confidence, success, and love. They become the defining moments which shape our world. He coaches high performing entrepreneurs, executives, and teams, and now prison inmates to create amazing results and deep connection, one tough conversation at a time. So, welcome once again, David. How are you doing?
Thank you, Aditya. I'm happy to be back here on your show. I enjoyed our first interview.
Yeah.
And so I noticed I've been looking forward to hanging out with you again. I'm good. Right now I'm feeling good. Here's what it looks like outside my house. This is Forest Cam here in Boulder. So I've got every reason to be good.
Nice. Is it snowing a bit there, or?
Yeah.
That's not snow, right? Is that snow? Okay. So
Yep.
it has started snowing. Wonderful.
Yep, that's snow on the ground. And I went for a jog yesterday in the snow. I'm not used to living in snow.
Yeah.
So I felt like Rocky.
Uh,
as I'm kind of training and running through the mountains in the snow.
yeah.
It's fun.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, it seems like even I am in this phase of life where I'm pushing myself to go beyond my comfort zone, whether it's waking up in the morning earlier or jumping into the cold shower or even doing a lot of breath work, which is controlling your breath, which is a form of discomfort. And so it's wonderful to know that you have pushed beyond your comfort zone. And among the other things that we're going to discuss today, but jogging in the snow, which is for a lot of people unimaginable. But to start with, how about we talk about how your career began? Because you began your career as a consulting actuary, right? So for our audience, what exactly does an actuary do? And then how did you experience that shift? How did life change at a certain point?
An actuary deals with long-term financial projections and
Mm,
statistics, demography, probability. So they use actuaries to calculate insurance premiums
mm,
and pension fund contributions, things like that. So my job was to consult to multinational companies based in New York who had operations in sometimes 80 countries.
mhm,
And it was a mess trying to work out all their pension plan operations. And I was a consultant to help them manage their risk when it came to that. And how I got out of it, I'd like to say I woke up, had a dream and I woke up and, this is my new mission, but it wasn't that clear. And usually it's not that clear. I did a personal growth course
mhm,
with Landmark Education, and I was very resistant to it. I nearly didn't do it because they all wore name tags and they were smiling way too much. And I'm like, I don't trust you guys. You're just preying on the weak-willed self-help junkies. And I decided I'm going to get in and get out. But they cracked my cynicism. They
mm,
actually helped me open my heart and to connect with people and to be inspired. And I was like, this stuff is great. So I went and did a couple more courses with them. They trained me as a coach. And then back in 97, I quit my job, went back to Australia thinking I'll just take 6 months off and
mm,
I'll play guitar and I'll perform in pubs and on TV if I can, and I'll be an entertainer. And then I'll go back to whatever I was doing. Well, that didn't happen. I never went back.
mm,
I met someone who was coaching professionally, and I'm like, wait a minute. I was coaching back with Landmark Education. You can
mm,
do this as a career?
mm.
And again, this is back in 98. And so I went and got myself in a coach training program, hired my first coach, got my first client, and I've been coaching for 20 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks a lot for sharing that conversation with us. And I'm sure that many of our listeners can relate to that spark of joy or that exhilaration that you experience when you realize a sense of possibility, whether it's a career or maybe it's a new relationship or maybe it's a new way of living, like you did. Or like, is it really possible to get paid as a coach for helping people transform their lives? Uh, and as it seems, it is. So thanks a lot for
Yeah.
sharing that story with us.
And can I add to that?
Yeah.
You know, I think it rarely occurs to humans as, oh, wait, this is possible. I can see the path. I
Mhm.
know 100% I can do it. All I feel is excited.
Mm,
It doesn't, it didn't occur like that for me. And it doesn't
mm,
occur like that for most of my clients. Usually it's a bit scary. It's like,
mm.
can I really do it? How do I do it? There are 1,000 options.
Yeah.
What's the right step? Do I have the money? Do I have the time? Do I have the skill? Do I have the confidence? Being an entrepreneur can be a very scary prospect. So I just wanted to say that people might look at my success and say, oh, well, you just knew how to do it, or it was easy
Mm,
for you. No, every step of the way, I have uncertainty. And then you try 1,000 things and 5 things work. That's my
right.
experience.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for sharing that. And yeah, I definitely can relate to that, where you get this jolt of emotion, this excitement, this joy, but then you start rationalizing, right? What is the next step should I do? Can I do this? Am I made for this? Or you start doubting yourself. And I think, like you pointed out, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. You throw a lot of things at the wall, and ultimately, maybe out of 100 or even 1,000, five stick. And those are things that work for you. And in those moments, I guess you need to have these tough conversations with yourself as well as with others, right? So, what do you define as a tough conversation?
Tough conversation is the one you don't want to have.
Hmm.
And there are usually two reasons I've identified, two broad reasons. One is fear of discomfort.
Hmm.
I'm going to feel uncomfortable in this. This person might accuse me of something. They might get angry or upset with me. I might feel angry or upset. I can't control how it's going to go. There's a lot of vulnerability here. So, first reason is fear of discomfort. And the second reason is fear of loss.
Hmm.
We don't want to have that tough conversation because if I confess something to my partner, she might break up with me.
Hmm.
If I tell my boss I screwed up, or that I don't agree with what she's doing, or I'm uncomfortable with the workplace situation, I might get fired.
Hmm.
So, or a friend may not speak to me again. So,
Right.
tough conversations, one you don't want to have, usually because of either fear of discomfort, fear of loss, or both.
Right. And these are very valid points. I mean, as our listeners are trying to visualize, I'm sure that keeps coming in their mind is, if I have this conversation, first of all, the process is going to be very uh, uncomfortable, because a lot of times we don't know what to say and how to react to what is being said based on how we start the conversation, or even the potential loss, because there are a lot of things that are out of our control, right? And one of that is how the other party responds, in many times in a permanent fashion. uh, but talk to us a bit about how can having these tough conversations transform a person's life, if the person knows how to conduct the conversation, what to say, how to navigate through it. What is the potential, or what are the potential rewards of
Yeah,
these tough conversations?
great question. I I understand, and let's assume that the person knows how to artfully have the conversation, because
Yeah.
I understand if you've got no idea how to have it, I understand why you might want to avoid it.
Hmm.
But I have a 4-step blueprint, and we can give listeners, if you like, a link to that at the end of the show so they can
Yeah.
download it and you'll have a guideline. So let's assume that you do know, because you've got the blueprint, how to have the conversation. Let's talk about why. Why would we bother with something that could risk discomfort and risk some kind of loss?
Mm.
Well, the metaphor I like to use is tough conversations are like a scary doorway. We see
Mm.
this doorway and it's maybe got cobwebs on it, and it just, maybe there's a skull and crossbones on the front, and it just looks scary because we're aware of what we could lose, and we're
Mm.
aware that we might have discomfort. But if
Mm.
we're willing to screw up our courage and go through the door, there are treasures on the other side. And my job is to make those treasures um, public and raise those in people's consciousness, so that we're not just seeing the risk of loss, but we're seeing
Mm.
the gain. And here are some of the gains. I'll start with the obvious one. The obvious one is some kind of external result. So if you have a
Mm.
tough conversation at work, you might be able to resolve something with an employee, some conflict you have, and now you've created harmony.
Mm.
Or you might get a pay rise that you want. Or if you have a tough conversation with a prospective client, you might ask for the sale and get the sale. You
Mm.
might get closer with your partner. You might get married to your partner. You can get
Mm.
all sorts of external results. Those are the obvious reasons to be brave with your tough conversations. But there are other results I've identified. When I have a tough conversation, I like myself more.
Mm.
Even if I don't get what I want, I feel proud of myself, my confidence develops, and I like that I'm self expressed.
Mm.
My voice matters. I've spoken up. I like to call this agency. It's not a very commonly used word, but agency means I am causing the matter.
Right.
So I think it's invaluable for our self-esteem, our growth, and our confidence. And then another result is often I get to deepen connection with the person that I'm having that conversation with. So let's say I'm thinking about someone I coached who had robbed a house when he was a teenager in his hometown. So he committed a burglary, and this guy's a manager in a huge company, high integrity, an amazing person, like he's someone you would call a friend if you knew him. But this is something he did when he was a kid, and he's been carrying that around for years. He went and had that tough conversation and confessed it to his childhood friend, and he got result number 2 of improving his self-esteem and liking himself more and his confidence, but also he got way more connected with his childhood friend. He was risking prosecution. He was risking having his reputation trashed in his hometown, and rightly so, because he committed a burglary. That was what he put at risk. And he ended up getting connected with this guy. The guy was like, wow, I can't believe you're telling me after all this time. He said, we were really upset. We didn't know who someone targeted us or if we were in trouble or what it was. He said, it's a relief to know after all this time that it was just a couple of kids being idiots. And he said, look, we're good. You owe me $250, but other than that, we're good. So he got connection out of it. And I think it's hard to put a price on that. Now you might think, yeah, but if my boss gets angry at me, we're not going to be more connected. Yeah, I dispute that. I dispute it. You're already disconnected because the tough conversation isn't happening. You've already got an issue, or you wouldn't have a tough conversation. So you're already upset with something in the office or wanting to change something and feeling too timid about it. It's already causing a disconnection. So if you're willing to take a risk and have that conversation, then even if your boss disagrees with you and says, well, we're not going to do that, but I get your point of view and thanks for speaking up, you can still feel more connected even if you didn't get the result that you're hoping for.
Got it. So these are all really powerful and valid points. And Action Tribe, if you're listening to this stream right now, or if you're listening to this podcast right now, and if there's an area that you feel that you might need to have a tough conversation, make sure you let us know in the comments below. And if you have a question as well, make sure that you let us know in the comments so I can feature them for David. And David, also, as far as energy healing is concerned, what I found is it's really unhealthy to keep a conversation or an idea or something that is unexpressed within ourselves for a long time, because that leads to disease, right? That leads to some emotional stagnancy or blockage that sort of manifests years down the line and can lead to chronic illness or even something like cancer. So that I see from that perspective, having a tough conversation can be so releasing, but also, like you mentioned, it can benefit firstly your health, the fact that it can manifest into something amazing, like an opportunity, like a new relationship or a new job or a new opportunity, or thirdly, just a renewed sense of connection with that person who you've probably known for a long time, but they did not know that dimension about you. So thanks a lot for sharing this.
And I'd like to add one too, because there's another benefit, and I want to double click on what you just said. It's so true. The peace of mind that can come, like what value or price do we put on carrying something for years that's bugging us? Like let's suppose my mother disappointed me and I felt totally let down when I was 15 and have never told her that. I'm carrying that around. So how do we value the peace of mind that can come from it, and then the health benefits as we release the energy and don't carry that around? I know it's scary, but this is one of the treasures. So I totally agree with you. And then another benefit, let's call it a fifth benefit, is I find when we have a tough conversation, we can literally transform our own reality.
Right.
So as an example, I coached
Mhm.
someone who was interviewing for a job and she didn't like how the guy was speaking with her.
Mhm.
She didn't feel respected. So she was going to just run and say, I'm not taking the job, not tell him why, or tell him, I don't like how you speak to me, I'm out. Just dump it and run.
Mm.
And in the coaching conversation, she realized that she didn't have tough conversations. She had tough monologues.
Okay.
She just dump it and run. So I helped her open up and look at what could be the benefit of having a conversation with this guy, making a request.
Yeah.
And she decided to take a risk and go and do it. And the guy was amazed. He said, I had no idea that I was speaking like that. Would you show me how to communicate with you better?
Mm.
And she ended up taking the job. And as far as I know, she's still very happy working there. But her reality shifted. In
Mhm.
her mind, the way the world was he's a jerk. This is the way he speaks. He's never going to change. I can't change him.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to go this direction. Her reality shifted. He became a different person in her world because
Mhm.
of a tough conversation.
Well, yeah. I mean, as you share the story, the way I look at it is the ability to have a conversation in a way that influences somebody's behavior or just the culture or environment that you're a part of in a way that also makes them like you more as a result of that conversation. I think that's a life skill to have, right? Yeah, it's I can see how powerful that could be, especially given the context of the example that you shared. Now, as we're talking about tough conversations, what are some examples of tough conversations that have brought the biggest shifts with in the lives of people that you worked with?
Well, the burglary was a big example
Yeah.
for this one person that I coached. For me, it made a big difference in my life when I called up the college that I attended when I was younger
Hmm.
and apologized for stealing their sign.
Mm.
So there's a big expensive sign at the front of college. And when I was maybe 17, I went and stole the sign,
Hmm.
not once, but twice.
Okay.
And I drive past the college and something felt off.
Mm.
Each time I'd look at it, I just felt this weird sensation in my body. And I just was a bit embarrassed about
Mm.
what I'd done. And it took 3 or 4 months of driving past the college for me to realize I need to have a tough conversation.
Mm.
I need to make a confession here. Now I was scared, and when you download the blueprint, you'll get a worksheet too, which will help you identify what you're afraid of. I was afraid of prosecution. I
Mm.
was afraid of a newspaper article and me being outed in the community as a vandal. And I realized some people would probably go, oh, well, he was a kid at the time, no big deal. But some people wouldn't care about that. So I was pretty scared. And I called up the college and I spoke to the principal who didn't know who I was,
Mm.
because this is 20 years after college. And I told him what had happened. And I said, I apologize. I'd like to make it right. How much are they? And can I pay for one? And he said, well, your timing's good because we just lost another of the damn things.
Mm.
And he was blown away. He was like, who are you? Why are you calling after all this time? And it ended up, he didn't prosecute. He was happy to get a check from me. And then he sent me a personal invitation to the opening of the new wing of the college.
Mm.
Now, I used to play up a lot, as you might be getting from this story. I'd smoked weed in college, and I'd take people up on the roof of college. We'd have a little party up there, try not to be caught. And so
Mm.
I wasn't welcome at that college for that last 20 years. I'd been banned. I got on well with the principal, but she said, you lead trouble. And
Mhm.
so you're not welcome here. So to be invited back personally, to go back to this place that I wasn't welcome before as an honored guest, was an extraordinary experience. And it just so happened that the Prime Minister of Australia was there to open the new wing because it was his district. I didn't even know that.
Mm.
So he's there, and 300 people are lined up to shake his hand, and I couldn't be bothered. But by amazing coincidence, I'm standing next to his media secretary, who's an old friend of mine, and the Prime Minister comes over, hands the media secretary some stuff and says, "Hold this rubbish, will you?" And then the principal sees me standing next to the Prime Minister and comes over and says, "Mr. Prime Minister, can I introduce an alumni of ours?"
Mm.
So I got to meet the Prime Minister of Australia and tell him what a life coach was, because back then he hadn't even heard of it.
Okay.
And all of this came out of me just cleaning up something that didn't feel right and risking my reputation. So that's one example. That made a big difference to me, not just meeting the Prime Minister, but my self-esteem and my sense of integrity and how I feel about myself, that I don't know that there's anything that can't be cleaned up in some way that you've done. No matter what you're carrying around that you think, well, I screwed that up, there's no way to fix that. Or I wish I hadn't done that. I feel so guilty, but it's too late now. Hey, I carried something for 30 years because when I was younger, I did something that could have hurt somebody. And I don't tell the details of the story, partly because it's not just my story to tell. It involves somebody else. But I felt so bad about it for 30 years. And finally, I decided to track this person down and confess to what I'd done, which was illegal as well. I said, look, I know I was a kid at the time, but I did this. It was me. I'm sorry. I want to check for impact and apologize. And it turned out that they weren't impacted at all, and it wasn't a big deal. And they said, it's fine, but thanks for talking to me. But I can't tell you the relief to me to know that I hadn't hurt somebody. And to know that I wasn't going to face criminal prosecution, because as far as I knew, maybe somebody knew, maybe one day it was going to bite me. So I believe most humans are carrying around some kind of guilt or shame, which is just one area of tough conversations. And I don't want anyone to have to carry that around. Now, I understand there are risks. So you want to weigh up the risk. If you could be facing jail or a divorce or losing your job, then yeah, you really maybe get some coaching, maybe get some legal advice before you do it. But in my experience so far, it's always been worth taking the risk to be vulnerable. I cannot think yet of one conversation where I'd say, I bet I could find one if I really looked, but then nothing's coming to mind where I think, I wish I hadn't even gone there.
So you don't regret any of the tough conversations that you've had. So here's my question. I mean, a while back you spoke about agency, right? The fact
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I'm running it through my head, seeing if
come back.
if this is something I can share publicly.
Yeah.
I can't share the whole thing, but there was one time when I cheated on a partner.
Okay.
And I came clean. I basically, I was confronted and I said yes. And it got me in so much trouble. It not just a breakup, but just caused so much trouble in my life. That's one time, if I could go back and maybe redo that, I might not have confessed, because I used to think you should tell the truth all the time. And I do think it's a beautiful ideal, and I aspire to that. But hey, I'll tell you, there are times when I will not have that tough conversation. I'll give you an example. If I'm coming into the US and I want to live in the US, and I might be, say I'm meeting with a client, or I'm going to try and get a client or something while I'm here, and immigration says, are you going to work while you're here? I may not choose to have that tough conversation and tell the truth. I may say, no, sir, because it's important to me to actually be able to live in the US, and I might decide that I wanted to do that thing. When I was in Bali, I was subletting a villa, So I rented my villa and then I sublet the guest villa, and it was covering my rent. Now, I knew it wasn't legal, but I figured if I have to pay a fine and if I ultimately get deported, I'll take that risk.
Yeah.
I got busted. And I
Oh.
had immigration come to my door, flash a badge, and say I was wanted for questioning the next day. And I thought, well, I've thought this through. That's fine. I'll show up and I'll take my lumps, and and maybe I'll tell the truth and take the consequences. But then I did some research and found out I was facing possible jail time
Mm.
for subletting a villa. They could put me in jail and then negotiate a bribe, a huge bribe, and I don't have a lot of leverage if I'm in jail.
Right.
So I decided that was a tough conversation I didn't want to have. And I actually spoke to a lawyer who I didn't know, because my lawyer was trying to cut a deal and negotiate a bribe. And so he had a vested interest in it, and I didn't trust his opinion. I spoke to a lawyer I didn't know, and she said, leave the country. She said, leave, dismantle everything. After 3 months, it'll all blow over and you can come back. So there are times when I respect someone choosing not to have a tough conversation. Even if someone chooses not to tell their partner that they've cheated, that's hard for me because I have a high value on integrity and honesty, particularly in relationships. But I understand that someone might go, I'm not willing to be single and I'm going to lie to someone. It doesn't match my values, but I can understand why you'd make that choice.
Got it. Got it. So, listeners, you need to use your good judgment, and if you're not sure, speak to somebody, or maybe get a coach, or get a lawyer in case you need legal advice. But there are certain instances where you might not want to have that conversation just yet. But it's just good to know that having these conversations can really lead to a lot of release on multiple levels.
I'd say 9 times out of 10, in my
Okay.
experience, there's profit in having the conversation. That's why I'm an evangelist for this. If it was 50-50, I wouldn't bother speaking about it. But there are risks. I need to say that up front. You need to work out if the profit, if the potential gain is greater than the potential risk. And usually the risk isn't that high. Like the risk that your boss will get furious and fire you is not very high. Maybe your boss might get upset for a little bit and then get over it. It's not that high, but the chance of a gain is often much higher. So 9 times out of 10, I've found there's normally huge gains to be had in taking that risk.
Got it. Now, David, talk to us about the work that you've done with prison inmates, because you've done some work, and there have been numerous results and learnings as a result of that, right? So, firstly, how did it all begin, and how are you helping these inmates?
I think it began when I heard about someone who was teaching 5 Rhythms dance and Sweat Your Prayers dance in a prison, and I've wanted for years and years. I felt like I should be doing more.
Okay.
In terms of giving back, helping society. I've been focused a lot and still am on building my business and succeeding in the world. And I when I see other people, I feel some shame and like, oh, I should be doing more. And so I heard about this dance thing and I thought, how amazing would that be to go into a prison and get prison inmates feeling in their body and moving around. And I wanted that experience, but I didn't really know the person. So fast forward about 8 years and I'm here in Colorado and I'm hanging out with all these people and I'm starting to study authentic relating training.
Okay.
How to communicate openly and honestly with another human. And I met a guy at one of these events and I had a man crush on him. I really liked him, just felt so connected, and we exchanged phone numbers.
Yeah.
And then I just followed up one day and said, what's up? And he said, well, I'm heading to a prison to teach authentic relating. And I was like, wow, I knew I wanted to do something in prison. And I'm just fascinated by that whole scenario and like what freedoms do I take for granted and all of that. And then the fact that it's authentic relating, which is something that I was really excited about, and that I've been basically coaching on for 20 years in a way.
Yeah.
I said, can I get in on that? And so he put me in touch with the director, Laurie Lazar, who is the executive director of Authentic Relating International, which is a nonprofit that goes in and helps rehumanize inmates and show them how to connect with other humans, so that firstly, they can survive and thrive in prison, but when they get out, they know how to communicate with a potential boss, on
Right.
an interview, with coworkers, with their family who might be resenting them for what they've done. They can learn how to be human out there, so their chances of committing another crime and coming back go down. So
Wonderful.
that's how I got into it. Now I've been to 4 prisons. So I guess that's 8 days in prison, and it's quite the eye opener. They're not messing around there. When that door slams behind you, so there's a door shut in front of you and a door slammed behind you, and someone's watching you on a camera,
Yeah.
and you're waiting for the other door to open so you can go through even to the bathroom. It's I mean, I don't know if you know what it's like. If an officer pulls you over, you've got that authority, and you know you could be in trouble, and they've got a gun, right? Or if
Yeah.
you're going through immigration and you're not a citizen of this country,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they ask you to come into the back room, which I've had multiple times. It's scary. You're in
Oh,
someone
yeah.
else's power. Well, prison is like that times 10. What
Yeah.
I do have going for me is I know the chances are super high that I'm going to be let out, and I've still got privileges
Oh, yeah.
and rights that none of the other inmates have. So I've got that sense of power and privilege, but still I find it very confronting.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that, especially in the USA, there's a lot of talk or discussion around prison reforms, right? Because I see that a lot of people have been put in jail for long sentences for petty crimes, small crimes, that are also in many cases wasting taxpayers' money, right? So there's a lot of discussion around that. But
There are
uh,
juveniles in
yeah,
prison for life. I'm
wow,
serious. They were sentenced as juveniles for life. And in Colorado, that law, I believe, has just been overturned,
okay,
so that now those juveniles are becoming eligible for parole. But yeah, it's as US has the highest incarceration rate in the world. So something's going on here, and I am very happy that they're bringing in prison reform to
yeah,
try and, in Colorado, it's all about normalizing,
yeah,
so that they can relate as a normal human being, and less of the authority figure with the scary CO who doesn't share any information, and
oh yeah,
the prison inmate. It's like, let's normalize it so we can have a normal conversation. You can have maybe some more of the rights that you would have on the outside, so that when you get out, you know how to be a human being.
mm. Well, that I think is could be really really useful for these inmates, right? Because I saw the video that you posted, the preview video, and you were conducting these sessions and these workshops with them, and it was pretty emotional, right? So what was it like working with these inmates, and maybe what's the most surprising thing that you found from this experience?
Well, despite the power dynamic, which I
Hmm.
realize makes it pretty impossible to be equals, because, you know, the inmates seem to have so few privileges, and
Mm.
they're in the power of everybody else.
Mm.
What that generates is, normally, I believe, less authenticity, and there's a motivation to manipulate. So it's the same talking to your boss. You're not just
Yeah,
going to be 100% candid with your boss, because your boss can fire you.
yeah.
So you want to present a good face to someone who's teaching you something in prison, because maybe they might be a reference for you on parole
Mm.
or something like that. So I understand there's that. However, I did enjoy relating to them as one guy to another, or one human to another. And I did enjoy some of the jokes, and I went there. I joked about some stuff that I wouldn't have thought I could get away with in prison, but I think they got that I was coming from a good place. Like one
Okay.
guy, we had them all doing their scary prison walk. Like, show us your arrogant, dominating walk where you're trying to be a badass.
Mm.
We had them all walking around, and one guy was doing such a crazy ghetto walk.
Mm.
I ran across from the other side of the room and started shadowing him
Mm.
because I wanted to learn how to do this walk. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
do this, and I'm pretending I'm walking around the prison yard. And he turns around, and this could have gone in any direction. But I
Yeah.
said, keep going. I got to learn this. So he kept on walking around doing this thing.
Yeah.
And I was following him. Everyone's laughing.
Mm.
And the next day I said to everybody, I said, look, you won't realize but this was a big moment for me. When is a little white guy like me going to get to shadow a big black guy like that in prison and walk away from it?
Yeah.
And fortunately they laughed their heads off. So I just enjoyed being real with them. And in that vein of being real, there was one guy who looked a bit scary. And it turned out he'd been in Afghanistan. His job was to kill people in Afghanistan. And he looked pretty intimidating. He looked military. And one of our assistants in the course told us at the end of the first day that after an interaction with that guy, he was shaking. So our staff member was in the bathroom shaking because this guy was so intense. Maybe he was trying to stir him up or something, but he's like, are you scared? You look scared now. What's going on with you? And so it really shook him. And at the time, I thought, I said out loud, I kind of wish that I'd been in your shoes because I'd like to be tested. I'd like to see if I could handle that. And you got to be careful what you wish for. Well, the next day, this guy comes over and chooses me for an exercise. And he sits down with me and we're doing this exercise, and I had to, he had to yell at me about something. I had to play the role of a friend of his, and he started yelling at me. And as I listened to the story, I started to feel compassion. He was worried about his friend. He was worried about losing his friend. And I started to just tear up a little bit. And I just mirrored it back. I said, it sounds like you're really worried about losing me. You've lost a number of people and you can't lose one more. And the guy jumped up and ran to the bathroom. This scary military guy jumped up with tears in his eyes and ran to the bathroom. My story is because it was too intense for him to have all these feelings come up and have them be met with compassion. And he didn't want to see people to see him blubbering. So I've been moved so many times to tears by seeing other inmates either inspired and lit up by what they're going to do with their life, or by seeing them get in touch with their emotion and let it out and be seen in front of the group. It's very rewarding to me to see that. I get inspired.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like a really, really rewarding experience, especially when you had situations that you did not plan, right? I'm sure there was some element that was planned, and then something that was just this happened in the moment, like you shared. Now, while we've discussed that it's important to have these tough conversations, a lot of times one might not be aware that these conversations exist within them that they need to have. So how do you go about uncovering these tough conversations that one can potentially have?
Yeah, that's so important to ask that, because people aren't generally walking around thinking, well, I've got 6 tough conversations to have. Let me go and get help with that. No, what's happening is people are walking around and they've swept under the carpet a lot of the issues. And what we can find easier than the conversations is what are the issues or the problems we have with people. So I think a great exercise is grab a sheet of paper and a pen and just start writing a list of people on the left-hand side anyone who comes into your mind that you don't feel 100% wonderful with,
Mm.
or that you resent, or you've got some anger or some guilt about how you treated them. It can be people currently who are important in your life. Could be people where there's something you haven't said, you have a confession, there's some kind of secret. Write all those people down. And if you want to, if you really want bonus points, get another sheet of paper and write down people from the past.
Mm.
People you hate, people you resent, people you don't like, people you judge. And then in the right-hand column next to those names, write what's the issue. You don't
Mm.
have to know what the conversation is, but maybe, I don't know, I'm thinking about a boss of mine from years ago, and I didn't like how I just felt undervalued by him. He seemed to value others, but he didn't value my work. So I might
Mm.
write that down. And you write down all these issues, and it doesn't mean that you now have to go and have all those conversations, but now they can start to come into your awareness.
Mm.
And you don't even have to start with the toughest. You might start with a couple of the easy ones, go and circle a couple. There might be something you've been wanting in bed with your partner,
Mm.
something you want your partner to do to you, or that you want to do to them, or something you want to try. You haven't said it because you're a bit embarrassed. All right, boom, circle that one. That's a tough conversation. There might be someone who disappointed you at some time in your life, and you've just been carrying that around. Circle that. There's another one. That's one way to identify the conversations. And I want to give another tip too. Here's a really good clue.
Mhm.
When you find yourself complaining to somebody else about somebody or a situation,
Mhm.
that's your clue that there's a tough conversation to have. If you find yourself gossiping about someone, oh yeah, that guy just talks and talks and talks, or I hate how he complains, or that's your clue that there's a potential tough conversation to have with that person.
Got it. So, Action Tribe, I hope you have these ideas now. It might be something that is deep within you, something that is from many years back, or just some offhanded comment or something that you say to some other person about this other person, that resentment that you hold. These are opportunities where you can potentially have these tough conversations, but it all starts with writing them down. And thanks a lot for sharing that with us, David.
You're welcome.
Now, inherent in these tough conversations, I guess, is the importance to push beyond your comfort zone, right? And these days, like we were talking before this interview, I myself am pushing myself beyond my comfort zone through cold showers in the morning, trying to wake up earlier in the morning and sort of set up my morning routine, and doing a lot of breath work so I can control my breath. But talk to us about the importance and the necessity to really test our comfort zone or to experience more discomfort in our lives. What does that do for us?
I love that question. And I heard a guy speak recently. I forget his name, the guy who started the Spartan race. And
Okay.
he had a really good point. He said that our comfort zone, say 200 years ago, might have
Mhm.
been this big, right?
Right.
Be fairly huge. We were
Yeah.
used to walking miles through the snow,
Yeah.
used to being cold, used to working 10, 12-hour days just to put food on the table, used to getting beaten up,
Oh
I
yeah.
assume, perhaps getting raped. Sexual abuse was like, 200 years ago, it was a whole different ball game. We didn't have machines to wash our clothes. We didn't have machines to generate electricity for light.
Yeah.
Um, all of that. So this was our comfort zone. These days, I've led by comparison, a pretty cushy life,
Mm.
right? So now it gets to the point where if my cup of tea isn't really hot,
Yeah.
that's a problem for me.
Mhm.
We're sitting on a plane and the seat doesn't go back far enough. Louis CK, he says people complaining, it doesn't recline, or the internet's not fast enough,
Yeah.
20,000 feet above the earth. I'm not, so we've kind of been pampered so much
Mm.
that our comfort zone has shrunk to this. And I believe that a lot of the treasures in life, using that door analogy, just beyond the scary door of the treasures, will just beyond our comfort zone. So we've
Mm.
got to go out of our comfort zone to go through that scary door to find the treasure.
Mhm.
And that's where growth happens as well. Growth doesn't seem to happen as much in the comfort zone. So as a self practice, I seem to have cultivated since an early age being willing to feel fear.
Mhm.
I will jump off a mountain with a paraglider strapped to my back solo. I will go up to a woman in a bar terrified of being rejected. I will go
Mm.
and step on stage um, and almost pee my pants. I did this on national TV once in a kilt. I was so terrified, but
Yeah.
I'm willing. There's something in me that drives me to be willing to feel that discomfort for the rewards on the other side.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing to cultivate. If you're not willing to feel discomfort, if you're going to stay in this tiny comfort zone we have, you're going to miss out on a lot of conversations and a lot of great results.
Mhm.
So I love what you're doing as a practice to cultivate discomfort.
Mhm.
Cold showers are a good example. I started stepping into Boulder Creek
Yeah.
last year, and incredible pain initially, but
Yeah.
I started to work up to it. I've just gotten off antidepressants in the last
Wow.
few months, and then another drug that was really hard. So I went way beyond my comfort zone in getting off that because I wanted the potential benefits on the other side. So anything that you can do to cultivate a practice in the prison, we do an exercise specifically for this, because if we want the prison inmates or anyone else to be able to sit and handle someone coming at you with a lot of anger,
Yeah.
got to cultivate discomfort. So we actually have them get there with their arms held out in a
Yeah.
position that is pretty easy to hold for a minute, but and then you start squatting a little bit,
Mhm.
and after about 3 minutes you start to shake.
Ah.
Muscles start to tremble, the arms start to tremble, and you've got a partner and you don't want to let your partner down, so you push yourself beyond, and it's an exercise in just pure discomfort.
Mhm.
Can I handle this? And after 10 minutes it's like, we're done. But now they know they can do that. The theory is that they will then know, if you can do a cold shower, you can do that, that you can be uncomfortable in a conversation.
Oh yeah, I definitely find that as well. It's all interconnected, right? When you're getting into the cold shower. Now, I don't jump into the cold shower. I take about 15 seconds or 20 seconds in the warm shower because I find that helps with opening your pores as well. But then I turn the faucet all the way towards cold. But I find that, like you've alluded to, if I spend my time in the morning in that cold shower for 10 minutes or 12 minutes, whatever that time might be, there's a neural pathway that's created, right, in my ability to handle that level of stress, so that if something happens during the day, somebody's not acting the way I want them to, or something doesn't work out, or something goes doesn't work out as planned, I'm able to take that because of that one cold shower I had early in the morning.
Wow. Yeah, I like that. We've been running away, and I include myself in this. Been running away from discomfort for most of our lives,
Mm.
and anyone who's gone to the gym and pushed through a barrier
Oh yeah.
has experienced what it's like to feel discomfort and go through it for the rewards. Let's just translate that to our personal growth and our communication, and be willing to take a risk and feel uncomfortable because there's good stuff on the other side.
Okay, so let's say somebody listening to the show right now or watching this stream right now has decided that there's this one conversation that they need to have and they're ready to have it. And in most cases, people need to have these conversations at the workplace because, people tend to make the workplace a toxic environment. So let's say they want to have a discussion with this coworker or maybe their boss or their colleague. What are some things to keep in mind to ensure that they're able to navigate this tough conversation with ease?
Well, I'll give you the 4 steps from the blueprint. You just follow the 4 steps.
Okay.
Let's come up with a concrete example. So, is it a coworker or a boss?
So let's say it's a coworker who's making life miserable for this individual. Maybe just offhanded comments, or
All right.
you know, yeah, something
All
like
right,
that.
good. So let's say the coworker is putting me down,
Putting me down, exactly.
and just constantly undermining, making derogatory comments. Okay, good. So the step 0 is to do the worksheet.
Okay.
So, and you'll get that when you download the 4-step blueprint. And the worksheet will help you realize things like, what are you hoping will come out of this conversation? What's your intention? What are you afraid of? What makes it tough? There must be some kind of concern you have. And then, is there a request you have, so that you're not just sharing your experience, but you're trying to direct it in a certain direction.
Right.
So you go through that. And then step 1, ask permission to have the conversation. Don't just launch into it. So with this coworker, I might say, "Hey, Jenny, do you have 3 minutes for a quick conversation? It might be a little awkward, but my hope is that we'll work better together, and I'll actually enjoy working with you more." This is your chance to enroll the person in having that conversation and give them a bit of a heads up, so they know this is a bit edgy for you. So ask permission, and then we'll share the hope from the worksheet. That's a good place to do it. Step 2, share your concern. This is optional. I don't always do it, but it can really help. Can be quite preemptive. So, Jenny, I hesitate to bring it up because I'm worried you might think I'm an idiot or that I'm oversensitive, and you just might be aggressive about it instead of listening to me. So I kind of hesitate to bring it up, but I think it's worth talking about. So I'm going to anyway. This lets her know that this is a bit edgy for me. I'm a bit worried about doing this, and I'm on my edge. Step 3, this is where you share the issue. And if you have a request, you'll bring it in here. So I often find when you say something about me, it doesn't seem positive to me. And it's not even balanced. Like, half of it's good, half of it's critical. It seems to me to be like maybe 80-90% of the time it's undermining, it's belittling, and it doesn't feel good to me. And I want to ask for you to be more conscious of it and to say positive things or nothing. And then I'll go straight on to step 4 here because it feels natural. Step 4 is get curious. Find out about their world. How's this land for them? And this is where you listen. So I might go straight on from that into, I'm curious, how does it look from your point of view? Does that seem right, that it's all been negative? Have you not noticed? Do you care, not care? I'm just wondering, how is it for you to hear this, and what are your thoughts on this? And then you really shut up and listen, and you negotiate. See, the other person might have a better idea than what you had. Maybe they say, you know what, I actually think you're too sensitive, and I don't judge you at all, but I think you judge yourself, and I want to needle you a little bit so that you get tougher. I might get enrolled in that. You're like, who knows? But this is where you give them a chance to listen. So those are the 4 steps. How is it for you to hear those 4 steps? Did they all make sense? Were there any that stood out as being strange?
Oh, this is to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No. I think these 4 steps are really, really useful. I mean, I can't overstate this, because you provided a wonderful step-by-step procedure to having that conversation, which usually is charged up with emotions, right? And so I see a sense of leadership also, because you're not just sharing, just going out there and blurting out what was on your mind for so many months or even years, but you're navigating that in a very calm and confident approach, in a way that allows for you to receive feedback from them as well, because sometimes you miss out on that. So I think this is a blueprint which I could also use, whether it's having these conversations with people in my family, or maybe colleagues, or even somebody who I'm looking forward to doing business with. But I think this is really useful for us. So thanks a lot for sharing. And also, what is that link that members can use to download the worksheet?
Yeah, I'll give you the website. And then I have a couple of invitations for people. Go to
Hmm.
playforreal.life.
Hmm.
That's playforreal.life. And you can download the blueprint for free. Also, my podcast is now launched since our last interview, AJ. And so if you want to join Tough Conversations with David Wood and listen to me as well as AJ, I'd love to have you on the podcast. And you can subscribe at the website. And if something in this conversation resonated with you and you'd like to up level your life, either through Tough Conversations or through some other skill, then see if you qualify for a discovery session on the website. Just click on request a session. And if you qualify, I don't charge for those sessions, because it's how I find the right people to work with long term.
Got it. So, Action Tribe, we have one phase left for our show. But if you're enjoying this session so far, then make sure that you hit the subscribe button on your phone, especially on your iPhone, because it'll ensure that you do not miss out on any future episodes, because we've got a lot in store for you. Once again, hit the subscribe button so that you stay in the know. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, where we spoke about the importance and significance of having these tough conversations. And I'm pretty sure that you have some ideas now on how you can get started with transforming your life. Remember that it's never too late, because everything that you've done so far has led you to this particular situation and phase in your life. And you need to trust your journey for that. But what happens right now, you are in full control. So take some time to reflect, to contemplate, to journal based on what is being shared today, so that you know that uh, who it is that you need to speak to, and the conversations that you need to have. And remember, discomfort isn't a bad thing. Discomfort is your friend, because it helps you grow and transform your life. But you have to start somewhere, and the best place to start is today, because, like Les Brown always reminds us, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started in order to be great someday, or maybe even tomorrow. And with that, we've come to the last round, which is the wisdom round. So, David, I know it's been a couple of months since we've last had an interview, and maybe things have changed since then. But perhaps we can do this once again. Based on where you are today, what is that best piece of advice that you recall that was given to you?
Share your inner dialogue.
Got it. And if you could turn back time and spend 1 hour with someone who is living or dead, who would it be?
I might spend an hour with my sister, who passed away when I was younger.
And these days, what is it one thing that you do in the morning or maybe in the evening in Colorado that has improved the quality of your life?
I've been jogging almost every day, getting out on a mountain trail with my dog. And I like myself more each time I do this.
Oh, I love jogging as well. I think there's something that happens. It's the runner's high, right? After you complete your jogging session, that even chemically wants you to do more of that activity on a daily basis. So I love jogging myself and getting more into it. What is it, one book that you'd like to recommend for our listeners today?
Well, this isn't self-help. I'm going to recommend possibly my favorite book of all time. It's a fantasy book called The Name of the Wind. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I'm listening to it now for my third time. I think I've read it 3 times. I'm waiting for the third in the sequel series to come out. we've all been waiting like 8 years for the third one. Incredible read.
So, Action Tribe, this is a reminder that in case you want to listen to a book, not read a book, but listen to a book for free, then audible.com is offering all our listeners one free audiobook with a 30-day free trial to experience their service, because listening is the new reading, and you can listen to books, self-help, fiction. They've got a huge library, right? So if you want to get your free credit, go to my7chakras.com/free book. It's my7chakras.com/free book. Now, David, before you go, tell us one thing that you are grateful for. And if you can, tell us the link once again so that our listeners can get reminded of how to download that worksheet.
Thank you. I'm grateful almost every day for my puppy. I just tell her so many times a day, I love you. She brings me so much joy. So that's what I'm most grateful for at the moment. And the link is Play for Real. It's Play for FOR Real REAL, playforreal.life.
Got it. Playforreal.life. Our listeners will go there. Action Tribe, before we end, if you enjoyed today's episode and if you consider yourself part of Action Tribe, then you will definitely love the Action Tribe Energy Circle, our soon to launch membership portal for healing, awakening, and abundance, where you will have access to mentors who will provide you training in a variety of exciting topics, including discovering your purpose, activating your intuition, learning about yoga philosophy, and dissolving all your emotional blocks. So, if you're curious and you'd like to be notified as soon as we launch, go to my7chakras.com/waitlist. That's my7 is a word, my7chakras.com/waitlist. And if you're on Instagram, then take a screenshot of this particular episode and tag us so that we can share it with our respective communities. My handle is at my7chakras, at my7chakras. And David, are you active on Instagram at the moment?
Yeah, I'm _ Play for Real
Awesome.
on Instagram.
Great. So follow David as well. And if you have any questions, comments, observations, my email is aj at my7chakras.com. That's aj at my7chakras.com. Uh, that's all from my end. It was wonderful having you on our show, David, and introducing to us the importance of having a tough conversation and taking us one step closer to a human revolution.
My privilege, AJ, and it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again. We're going to end this broadcast.